Interactive match sim is going to be a major factor for career mode junkies. It has to be.
Definitely something that I think we all want, that would actually get a lot of the FUT users to play career mode. But I want to see the Youth Academy be a major part of your career mode.
What's happening, my beautiful people? My name is LaBelle, and today is special. Not only are we talking FIFA 21 career mode, but I have a special guest, a career mode enthusiast, an expert, if you will. But before we get into that, let's check out the trailer. And we got a lot of drip. If you enjoy the content that we've been putting out, drop some love on the video. Get with me in the comments. Are you excited? Are you not excited? Are you disappointed? What did you want to see change? That is our personal back and forth. You, me, and everyone else, right? Everyone else. I mean, it's open. The comments are public. Look at that man, Klopp. Not a Liverpool supporter, but you can't hate on Klopp.
Manage every moment in FIFA 21 career mode with a new interactive match sim, more control over training and developing your squad, and more ways to sign players on the transfer market.
Interactive match sim. Massive.
Ready for a whole new way to play out your career? The brand new interactive match sim gives you full control when simming matches. Jump in and out of the action when you decide to change the course of the game. Or take
See that finesse shot on a side note? Open up your body. Show us something. Interactive match sim is going to be a major factor for career mode junkies. It has to be. As someone who's played a lot of career mode throughout the years, even though not as much in recent times, I'd like to take the key moments. I want to impact those matches. I don't always want to play every game, but I also like this interactive screen. I could sub in and out. I can move around the formation and the tactics. I'm good with all of that.
Take charge for key moments to dominate the moments that matter.
Ramos from the spot.
Keep an eye on match stats and player performance levels, and make subs or
Nice little substitute menu. EA's got a little football manager influence, safe to say. Player development. Tell me more.
A new player growth system puts you in charge of your squad's development. Spotted a gap in your team? Turn marauding fullbacks into wingers.
Look at this. We're changing positions. This is going to be huge from the content creator side because you could put any player technically as any position. And I've always said this, even from the early days where I've compared FIFA to Pro Evo. You could move players around the pitch, but as they play different positions, their rating would be affected. And that makes sense. And we haven't had that introduced in Ultimate Team or any other game mode until now, perhaps, with how exactly this growth and positional transition works, because I'm not 100%. Let me provide you with an example. Let's say you have a center back and that's his natural position. If he played as a left back, would he be capable? Sure. But if he started as a center back at an 80 overall, maybe he's only a 74 overall left back. And then if you moved him to a center defensive midfielder, maybe he'd be a 77 overall defensive midfielder. These are not his primary positions, but he could still be viable. He could still be an option. And this is even more important when you're dealing with squads where you don't have as many premium players or quite the same levels to the depth.
With new position training. And new development plans give you...
Oh, what is this? Balanced? What the hell's a bombardier? A penetrator? That sounds dirty. Playmaker forward and a pressing forward. Bombardier? That sounds great.
Help you build your squad's attributes to match your style of play.
They're really showcasing a lot of headers. Side note. Do you see this drip, though? The Umbro unit? Yeah, we brought out the pink, boys. Active training.
Manage your team schedule and train multiple players at the same time with
Okay.
a new activity management system. Choose when to rest and when to train throughout the week as you balance your players' morale and fitness with match sharpness. A new stat that shows you how likely players are.
I have no idea how to speak properly on match sharpness or what to expect with this feature. I'm going to be asking our special guest. Spoiler or no spoiler. Foreshadowing. I just like to attach some sort of opinion.
To perform at their peak. Then boost it with group training sessions, monitor your players' progression, and find that sweet spot with fitness and morale.
Okay, Foden. Got to be getting upgrades. I'm peeping these ratings. So based on match sharpness, you get an improved overall rating on top of their baseline rating. And maybe morale plays a factor as well in this three-piece.
Morale to keep your team firing on all cylinders. Whether you're all about the Galacticos or the hunt for the brightest young prospects, New options give you more ways to transfer players and a more realistic transfer market in FIFA 21.
New transfer options still seems a little rinse, wash, repeat. And I already know what they're going to say about enhanced opposition AI. You can see that in the top corner up here. AI improvements you won't know until you're actually in that game. I just recorded a podcast discussing specifically the CPU adjustments or improvements. Until I've played the game, I can't be on board with that. Hat game on point. Blonde hair, black beard with a Kangol hat. Short but sweet. And overall, it feels as if we do have levels to progression here. But I'm going to bring on our special guest, and he's going to give us the good, the bad, the ugly. I've got to admit, and I am not an expert in the career mode world, but I do feel after watching this trailer that we're seeing certain levels of progression for most of you that are on my YouTube channel. I actually started as a career mode YouTuber. I was always doing some online content as well, but I had a My Player series. Unfortunately, we never see an announcement about My Player, but I'm bringing on a friend of mine, Jake. You might know him as BFordLancer. We actually just did a broadcast together with everything around the esports and summer series or summer cup series. How are you doing, my brother?
I'm doing good, man. Career mode being announced today. I'm super excited about some of the new features, and I can't wait to dive into it.
And I feel like it only makes sense to bring in someone who knows this from the top or the back, their full hand, whatever the saying is that I'm never going to get correct. The back of the hand, like they know like the back of their hand.
Yeah.
What's the saying?
Like, yeah, you know it. Yeah, you know, like the back of your hand. Like, or that, well, that's like,
I ruined.
Isn't that redundant? That's like,
I don't know. You know it. Is it? Is it?
Because
that
you
I
don't know the back of your
about.
hand, right? Like, no one. Let's just. We know what you mean, Mike.
My analogies are always like on the fence of being amazing or terrible. But the point is, I wanted to bring in someone who's really in that community. And the first thing that I noticed in the trailer was interactive match sim, which in some ways reminded me of Football Manager with some of the tactical adjustments that you can do on the fly. Subbing in for key moments is huge. What does this mean from the content creator or from the user's perspective?
I'm really excited for content creation. It definitely allows to add a little bit more drama in the videos, where I do a lot of videos where like I simulate a lot of the games, like you know how gameplay works. Not everyone wants to see gameplay. It's a lot of menu content, so that helps for me making a game like, say, Sim the Champions League final more dramatic. Whereas in the last FIFA, you clicked one button and it skipped right away and it gave you your results. This one, you can actually go make this changes, and then yeah, like you said, in the click of a button, you are into the simulation. You are there. You're in the game from the simulation, I should say. And it is like no delay almost. I think you click the button and then it's a 3, 2, 1 countdown. You're in. There's no loading screens or anything, which is really cool. There's also commentary for the interactive sim, which it's going to be interesting to see how that works, because they'll have the FIFA commentators commentating over the simulation. So I really think they hit this one on the head. I think as the years go too, it's something they can just add different features and make it, you know, as souped up as Football Manager is, because we all know if you play Football Manager, they do everything because they don't have gameplay, so they're focusing on all that menu content. So it's a really good step in the right direction for EA.
I think it's unique as someone who has simulated through career mode seasons where I didn't necessarily want to play any of the games. I just wanted to manage. But if you had given me the option to sub in for key moments in the Champions League, in the finals of something that really matters, or the final matches for maybe the Premier League, because I would play through some of the important games. But for the majority, I would often simulate because I wanted to do the transfers. I wanted to build out talent. I wanted to develop the team. And I feel like this interactive match sim gives you kind of the best of both worlds, because you can control what you want to do and how you want to do it.
Yeah, 100%. I felt like this is a feature. The interactive sim is something that people wanted for a long time. I think it's one of the surprising things that we get that jump in thing, because that's something that people weren't really expecting, and I don't know if people necessarily knew they wanted, but it's going to be such a really cool feature, because if they didn't have it, I don't think the interactive sim would get used that much, because the only real things you can do are sub players in and out. You can change tactics. You can go, you know, switch between your ultra defensive, balance, attacking, you can do all of that stuff, and then yeah, make the substitutions and whatnot, and that's fun. Don't get me wrong, but like to an extent, you're not going to do that every single game. You're going to do the quick sim a lot where you just sim past it on the calendar. The jump in feature though, yeah, I mean, it's going to be huge because you do the sim, you see that you're losing by a few goals, you jump in, you try to get the lead back, then maybe you go back to the sim. It allows for just a lot of a good variety, I should say, of different ways to play career mode.
And I have a strong opinion attached to player development. Maybe because I remember, and it's kind of funny, we reference Football Manager for the match sim portion and some of the on-the-fly tactics. And now for player development, it reminds me of Pro Evo, where as you move players around the pitch, their ratings are going to adjust. You could train them to go into different positions, which I feel should always have been a factor, even in Ultimate Team. Because let's say, for example, let me paint a picture for you or put something out there for perspective. Let's say you're at a club and you don't have a ton of depth. You're going to have to play your center back maybe as a holding mid sometimes.
Yep.
Or your left back's definitely going to play as a left winger. Somebody gets hurt, or you have additional people that can fill in as a defender, but maybe he's got versatility. He's more of a utility player, and this gets lost in FIFA. So I kind of wanted to know your insight, because you can now manipulate the positions, and you can also transition players' positions. So somebody could start as a cam, and you could turn them into being a striker, at least from what I took from watching the trailer.
Yeah, you can do that. And I think they've also taken, at least with the, so we'll talk about like the player development. I see them as like two things, like position change and player development. They're both technically both under player development, but with like changing the attributes and whatnot, that's really cool because as you saw in the trailer, there's different sort of, it's almost like chem styles in Ultimate Team where you can choose kind of which stats you want to focus on. You have the balanced one where it'll slowly upgrade all your player stats through training, or you could, you know, choose one that's more of a hunter approach, hunter chem style, if you want that pace to go up and the shooting and whatnot. It allows for a lot of variety of gameplay. And with the position change, I feel like you were saying, it helps a lot more for those smaller teams. Like you wouldn't necessarily be swapping Liverpool. Like if you did a career mode with Liverpool, you're not going to be like changing a lot of their positions and stuff. But yeah, as you mentioned, smaller teams where you don't have that much starting money. You have to kind of work with what you have. It's going to be big for those type of career modes. In terms of content, I'm super excited for what I can do with that. You know, developing players different way, training them to different positions. Like I have to say, one of my first videos is probably going to be like training Messi to be a goalkeeper or something, because
that was the exact thing I was going to say is,
yeah,
are you about to take a primetime player and shift them into Ronaldo as a center back? Why not?
You can do it. It's not going to be pretty.
He's getting old.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be pretty. Like, I believe what they said was, like, you can do it, but it will take a while, first off, to actually transition them there. And then when they are at that position, their rating is just going to absolutely plummet. But, I mean, I'm going to have to try it, right? We're all going to have to try it.
It's the first thing that came to mind when I watched this in the trailer. I was saying people are going to take advantage, and I don't even know if I want to use the word abuse, but have fun being able to now transition positions on the virtual pitch. I've never seen a lot of these players in different roles, so why wouldn't you if it's possible?
Yeah, 100%.
I also saw with positional training, which you touched on briefly, and then active training, and they added this I guess new stat line, and I have no idea the importance or the relevance, and it's hard for me to guesstimate how valuable match sharpness is going to be. So I thought that this would be a great question kind of for you.
Yeah.
What are you anticipating is going to happen with match sharpness?
And like I see a lot of this stuff relating to Ultimate Team. Like I almost see sharpness as chemistry, and it pretty much is chemistry in Ultimate Team. If you have a player who is playing well and they're playing often, they're going to have match sharpness, which is going to give them boosts in their overall. So one of the screenshots we saw had Mbappe on 100 sharpness, and he had a +5 in his overall, so he was a 90 rated playing as a 95 rated player. And what you're going to see is players on the bench and who aren't playing as much aren't going to be as sharp. They aren't going to have that chemistry because they're not in the starting 11. They're not as familiar with a lot of those players. So if a player gets hurt, say you're playing with I don't know, say you're playing with Liverpool and Virgil van Dijk gets injured and you have to go to the bench and take out one of the center backs from Liverpool or the reserves who isn't playing as much, you're going to throw him in, and he isn't going to be as sharp because he isn't playing often. He isn't in that starting 11. He isn't as familiar with the players. So it's going to be good to also rotate the starting 11, not a huge amount, but make sure those players are getting the minutes so that they're sharp whenever you may need them.
Do you believe that this is going to be very relevant in the grand scheme scheme of everything. Because once again, when you're dealing with some of these high-level squads, you got to think, well, the player's a 90-plus rated guy on the pitch. How important is his sharpness actually, or in reality? I'm just playing devil's advocate.
I think it's going to be a lot more important because now you can actually visualize it, whereas like last year and in every FIFA before, sharpness wasn't there. But when you put, let's say, Messi at like a central midfielder, right? You put him out of position. And this is just in terms of like playing players out of their position, because now you see that decrease. Like, whereas before you could just play Messi at CM and it still showed him as a 94 overall player. Now you can play him at CM, but it's going to show like negative 10 in his overall, negative however many it's going to be for him playing central midfield. You'll see that, and it'll discourage players from playing, who knows what it would be. Trent Alexander-Arnold maybe in a midfield position as of right back, but that's that influence to use that player development, I guess. And if you really wanted to play Messi in the midfield, you can do it. You train him, and his overall will. Do you understand what I'm saying? I haven't like fully played it yet, so I don't really know. I'm just judging it off of the screenshots I've seen, but it's going to be interesting, right, to see how useful it is years on like a month or two down the road.
I'm on board with you. I just think I understand Ultimate Team so well and the competitive scene, so I always try to read between the lines of what this actually means when I'm bringing out some sort of piece of content. Hey guys, this is what they announced. This is what I'm anticipating it's going to actually look like, because they don't always go together. And it kind of brings me to my next couple points. They talk about new transfer options. They talk about enhanced AI. From my perspective, neither of these sound anything more than a rinse, wash, repeat to a certain degree. Enhanced AI, you got to experience that firsthand, or you don't even know if that's really an improvement. And then with the transfer options, I feel as if that's very similar to what we've seen in the past.
Yeah.
If you've had a bunch of options to move players around, they can decline it. Do they want to go on loan? They don't want to go on loan. They make the decision.
Yeah, well, they have the new option now where you can turn the strictness to either the transfer, how teams negotiate, to either strict or loose. And if you want to play a more hardcore career mode, you do strict. Transfer offers are, you're not going to be able to find those like super cheap players. You're going to find youngsters and you're going to have to pay top dollar for them. Whereas loose, maybe you could get a steal on a player. It's also big. One thing that we haven't seen is adding a buyback clause, or like if you loan a player in, you have the option to buy him. You can now do that. Loaning has always been a big problem in FIFA. It was almost nearly impossible to loan a young player in. Like, teams just don't want to part with them, and then if they do want to part, the player like denies the contract. So I'm hoping that gets turned around. I want to actually be able to loan players in, and it's especially big for the Road to Glory style career modes. You could never do it. You had to buy the players. You really could never do any loans. So we'll see how that works. In terms of the strictness, it's going to make for a more exciting career mode, whereas you never know what you're going to get each time around. And another thing, the teams with these new transfer options, teams can offer players in their deals. So one thing you're going to see is teams come forward and say, hey, we'll give you this player and this amount of money for this player in your team, which you never saw in the past.
And I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit.
Yeah.
Here. I want to talk to you about maybe where you've been most disappointed.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you my 3 disappointments.
Yep.
And then I'm sure you'll counteract me and say, yeah, I'm disappointed about those, and these are the other ones that you should know about. So first off, I didn't see any announcement around my player.
Yep.
And as someone who started with my player and just see so much potential with the development of that mode, and I don't even know if it's been changed in the last 5 years at all.
Yeah, no,
It just has not been edited. Even your My Player series, basically, you've created it. You've built in storylines
100%.
and narratives. That's another thing that I'd like to see. It's my second point here is, where is the storyline? Where is the narrative? Even if you're going through a traditional manager mode or going through a traditional career mode, I would love to have more cutscenes, more backstories, more information, more details, ways that I can immerse myself in the experience of actually being that manager and actually having this responsibility. And I just feel there's so much more EA could do in that aspect of developing this much larger landscape, so to speak, with career mode. And then last but not least, and this has also been a theme for what feels like a decade, online connected career mode. I did not see a mention about that, so I'm assuming that we're not going to see any shift along those lines.
Yeah, my first thought is that I don't see, like, the trailer's been released. Like, I don't see any other features being added to any other game modes. You would have thought if something was new that they would have announced it. So It does suck that like all these new features aren't going into the My Player. I'm very bummed about that. It hasn't been touched. I want to see something along the lines of EA sort of combining and bringing together Volta, Pro Clubs, and My Player in some way, similar to what like 2K has done. If you've seen, they've done that absolutely perfectly. Being able to go to the park and play 3v3 and also play a full 5v5 with your My Player, and then also use the career mode, the actual My Player, go play NBA games, and go on to become one of the greatest of all time. You can do that in 2K, whereas FIFA, they're all separated, which makes it harder for EA to like. They've been doing Volta, but they haven't been touching Pro Clubs or My Player. So I want to see them combine all that. A few other things I want to see in the future. I was a little disappointed we didn't. They talked a little about the Youth Academy, but I want to see the Youth Academy be a major part of your career mode. I want to see you be able to manage your under 18s, your under 23s. You should have not only your main team to manage, but all those other clubs below you so that you can actually train players up from the bottom. You can do it now. They have done a little bit with the Youth Academy, but not as much as I would have liked to see. As you mentioned, like an online career mode. Definitely something that I think we all want. Like really bad. That would actually get a lot of the FUT users to play career mode. But do EA really want that though? Do they want to take players away from FUT? Probably not, right?
I liked your concept around cross-pollination. Cross-pollination. I think I added an extra syllable in there. Between all these game modes because 2K does it right.
Yeah, they do.
And I even think EA did a good job with the journey. They just didn't execute in the way that I would have preferred. But the idea behind the journey, I think, is wonderful. You had this big build-up, this big story. Even if they just gave you the foot item at the end, if it wasn't Alex Hunter's story, but it was BFordLancer story, it was Mike LaBelle's story, or the story of Dirty Mike becoming Mike LaBelle, whatever. I wanted that development.
Everyone did. It sucks, man. Yeah. I agree. We needed to play as ourselves. We needed to customize Alex Hunter to be our player. We needed to make him look how we wanted to, and we didn't get that. One other thing I want to add for what?
Well, that's the Pro Clubs ad though. They could have had the Pro Clubs ad in there, right? Like you could have taken your now Pro from Journey into Pro Clubs. You transfer them in.
I was just gonna say, like, it just sucks because like each year we don't see improvements to certain game modes. It just puts it off even further and further because like I love these career mode changes, but it sucks we didn't see these a few years earlier because we could be even further ahead right now if like some of these sort of simple changes were made. But it is what it is. We got to push forward. Keep giving feedback, and I am excited. Although like there were a few things that I didn't see that I would have liked to see. I think what we got is going to be good for this year. It's going to keep career mode lasting a lot longer, I would say. One other thing I wanted more in this one that I forgot to mention was more like in-depth stat tracking, being able, and I think that's something that people want in Ultimate Team as well, being able to see like the trophies and the goals you've scored with each player, your past squads in career mode, just like tracking your progress as you go in career mode. I think people have been asking for that in Ultimate Team too. Like, yes, you can see like the goals and assists, but even for Ultimate Team, like rewarding you for when your card, your 99 Team of the Year Ronaldo scores 1,000 goals or something like that. Give us something, to make us want to push forward and continue to use those players. I don't know how I got off that track with stat tracking in career mode, but I could talk all day about this, man. There's just so much.
Well, as a very analytical person myself, I keep my own personal weekend league stats.
Yeah, stuff like that.
I wish in Ultimate Team that they gave you the stats of all the players, games played, goals, assists. If they could throw a couple more stats in there, even better. But I would like those statistics to still be available as you trade the players, you sell the players. I don't want the 100 games that I played with Henry, who I then put on the transfer market, now that disappears. And I never have a way of seeing how he really contributed to the club. Because a lot of players that you have for sometimes 500 games, 1,000 games even, and at some point maybe you trade them into an SBC in the later stages, or you make a move on the transfer market, whatever it might be, and then all of those statistics and contributions are lost. And as someone who is very much so committed to being able to have variables that we can measure, it would be nice, and I don't know if it's just too difficult from is it a game mode storage perspective, or put it on a cloud. I don't know what you got to do here, but I would love to have that information as something that I could date back to, because so many people ask you about certain players and you have a strong opinion, and it gives you a direct objective approach to your subjective opinion, maybe, where you say this guy was amazing, but this is why, and here's all of his stats, here's the results, here's how many wins we got with him. Here's how many losses. Because a lot of times, especially with defenders or even midfielders, if they're not scoring midfielders, it's not about how many goals they score, how many assists they provide. What's your winning percentage? You can make a difference in a match without necessarily hitting the stat chart or the stat stuffers or being in the stats. It still mattered the way you broke up the plays. Conte's a good example. Conte's never going to score a bunch of goals. He's never going to provide a bunch of assists, but he will still be an asset, especially the Team of the Year version from FIFA 20. Major asset to the squad.
100%. Yep. And need something like that in all game modes. And that's something I think people want to see as well. So yeah, hopefully in future FIFAs, but I like I said, is circling back. I think career mode is on the right track. I really like the changes and I'm excited for it this year. It's the first time I've been saying that in a while, but like I'm so excited to play this game. Every game mode really, minus pro clubs, but I don't really touch pro clubs anyway.
Pro clubs community, I'm sorry
RIP.
with those announcements. They were yeah, you didn't get much shift there at all. EA, I hope that you're watching this video, getting some levels of feedback and what we'd like to see going forward. But I really appreciate your time, as always. Where can the people find you?
BFordLancer48. Gotta have some career mode stuff coming up. FIFA 21, it's coming soon. I'm excited. Will it be less than 2 months away? Maybe right at 2 months?
Probably. I'd say 6 weeks, maybe. 6
weeks.
weeks, 7 weeks. We'll see.
Yep.
As we get closer, you get the early releases. Maybe we'll get lucky with an early push.
Be sweet.
Who knows for certain. And congratulations to you. You've been killing the game all year long. Uploads daily. Make sure to go check them out. And I'll have a lot more content coming out for you ASAP.